two writers, one just starting out, the other a bestseller. Join James Blatch and Mark Dawson and their amazing guests as they discuss how you can make a living telling stories. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast on a Friday with Mark and James. That's Dawson and Blatch. Well, there was a famous comedy duo called Morecambe and Wise, and they changed channels in the UK and they became Eric and Ernie. Just swapped to the first names, like we wouldn't notice they were the same people. But would we be Dawson and Blatch? That sounds like a solicitor's.
It does a bit, yeah, or an undertaker's.
Yeah. Well, with your state of current
My health
yeah.
at the moment, yeah, it's not far from the truth.
Not a bad thing. Okay, look, we have a masterclass episode. Now, I have to say, as a casual observer of the stats of the podcast over the years, when we do masterclass episodes, when you talk about an area of expertise and how to help people, there's a big spike. So we should probably do these more often, shouldn't we? And they are the ones that people like. So we've done how much does it cost to self-publish in the past. We've done the sort of 5 must-do critical things. We've done mailing list building. And what we're going to do today is that it is a conundrum area for a lot of self-publishing authors, particularly the ones starting up, and that is how to get reviews.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's one of the questions I get most of all when I'm speaking at conferences and stuff like that, is how do you get reviews? And it is a bit of a chicken and egg, because generally speaking, you need sales to get reviews, but you need reviews to get sales. So it is one of those intractable problems that took me quite a long time to solve. And what I will try and do today is take you through some ideas. We've maybe even addressed as you. Let's imagine that you had some time to write your book, and your book is out there, and we're now going to get some reviews for it. So some basic ways for people starting out, and also for people who are just struggling to get reviews. We'll go through some ways that I know work pretty well.
Okay, so as you say, chicken and egg, isn't it? And I know one of the areas presumably you're going to talk about is advanced reader teams. Is it worth? I know you've got a list of things that you're going to get out here, and I don't want to get in the way of that in this, but I think, yes, there we go. I think there's probably some don'ts here as well, isn't there? Because Amazon are pretty hot, yes. And we have a few scare stories in the group at the moment, actually, of people who've had accounts shut down and reviews deleted. You're going to cover that as well.
Yeah, you won't. I'd be very surprised you'd see account shutdowns for this.
Yeah, so that's more Facebook than Amazon, yeah.
Yeah, but you will definitely get reviews removed. And there is a lot of confusion about what is permissible. I don't think there's any reason for it to be confusing, because it's really as clear as day. So one of the things I was going to do, and we might even start with that now, is just to go through Amazon's position with taking a couple of sections from the terms of service and the accompanying notes that will really make it clear what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So Amazon's kind of general position, and this is me directly quoting from them, is that you may provide free or discounted copies of your books to readers. However, just talking about getting reviews, however, you may not demand a review in exchange. So that's worth noting, because we're going to get onto advanced reader teams, and some writers, I don't do this, some writers will take people off the team if they don't review. So I think that's getting very, very close to demanding a review in exchange. So I wouldn't do that, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail later on. So you can't do that, or you can't attempt to influence the review. Offering anything other than a free or discounted copy of the book, including gift cards, will invalidate a review and will have to remove it. So that's written in kind of fairly friendly language. And then getting into slightly more legalese, so delving deeper into the terms of service, we don't allow any form of compensation. So I've underlined that in my notes. We don't allow any form of compensation for a customer review other than a free copy of the book provided up front. If you offer a free advance copy, it must be clear that you welcome all feedback, both positive and negative. If we detect that a customer was paid to write a review, we'll remove it. The only type of paid review that Amazon supports is an editorial review. So that's, as they describe it, as a more formal evaluation of a book, usually written by an editor or expert within the genre. Then weirdly they add, but it can also be written by family and friends.
Oh.
So that's possibly the most biased review possible. And those ones go into the editorial review section of the book's detail page, and we'll get onto that as well. And then more underlining coming up here, this is really clear. Offering payment or any other incentive, so underline that, or any other incentive for a customer review is considered compensation. This includes giving someone money, so that's fairly obvious, or a gift certificate to purchase your book. We consider incentives to be any type of reward that is given in return for a customer review, including but not limited to bonus content, entry to a contest or sweepstakes, discounts on future purchases, and other gifts. So this actually came up in the group yesterday. Someone asked me whether it would be okay to run a competition when he got to 50 reviews. And I said, well, although that sounds fine, Amazon will not see it as that, because those reviews, even if they're indirectly being incentivized, they are being incentivized because people who have left reviews would be eligible to enter a contest once you get 50 reviews. It's very clearly incentivizing. And if Amazon finds that out, and don't underestimate Amazon's ability to find this kind of stuff out, they'll take the reviews down. So you will hear horror stories of writers complaining that 100 reviews they worked hard to get have all gone. And it will probably be because they've infringed at least one of the things that I just read out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly mysterious as to how Amazon do that. And there's been some genuine pleading cases in the group of people saying, this was just my advanced reader team. I don't understand why these have gone down. But there's obviously, I mean, Amazon understands, and there was a post recently about the links that some authors send out. Because if you'll notice, when you're on an Amazon page and you copy the URL, you might want to put it into an email. It can often be a very long URL with an ampersand in the middle of it, and a lot of stuff after it. Well, all that stuff after it tells Amazon whose URL that is, effectively, where it's come from, whether you search to get there, and so and someone else clicks on that and leaves a link. That for Amazon's probably a red flag, because they know that you've done a search. It's come directly from you. Why that? I mean, doesn't really in itself contravene the rules, because you can give people the book for free, but I suppose prompting them, giving them the link to the page, you basically got to let people do this completely independently. Don't send
No. There's a lot of stuff. I know exactly who you're talking about here, and I think it's. I don't buy that much of it. I think that you can send cleaner links, that just all that stuff, all the junk, take it off. That's probably best practice, but I've never done that.
Okay.
I always send the full junky link. It's not a problem. Amazon doesn't mind that. Of course, I can send a link to my book. Doesn't matter, what it says. And the fact that I sent a link and then someone then leaves a review doesn't mean that they're connected to me. The speculation that I think has a bit more legs to it, although I'm still not completely sold on it, is that Amazon is able to detect non-Amazon connections between a writer and a reviewer. So some people have speculated, and I think this is BS potentially, or in my opinion, is that Amazon is monitoring Facebook. I don't buy that. But what I think is more likely is Amazon does know if you and I were in the same house, speaking of an Eric and Ernie situation,
yeah,
I think
not the same bed.
If I sent you a link from the same IP address, I'm fairly certain Amazon knows that is a family member, or at least connected to me, because we're on the same IP address, or people working from the same IP address. I think those are not a good idea. I also think, bearing in mind that Amazon owns Goodreads, there's a very, very good chance that Amazon is able to detect links through Goodreads and that kind of platform. But I think people suggesting that Amazon is like this Orwellian force with a team of highly trained internet ninjas detecting links by trolling Facebook, I really don't buy that. Amazon doesn't have the manpower to do that, and I don't think they're at that. I don't think technically it would be possible. No. I may be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Okay, well, there's a certain, there cannot be, and we, every now and again, you and I get an opportunity to chat with Amazon executives. There is a certain lack of nuance when you're ultimately dealing with algorithms and computer systems, and so some people will unfortunately get caught in this, and they do their best. They absolutely do their best. They're not an evil corporation out to try and make it difficult for writers, but at the same time, they are facing a struggle against some people who are out to cheat the system, and so there's a kind of eternal tension there, and occasionally people do get swept up in it. What are the chances, Mark, of someone who's had a load of reviews deleted and they think unfairly getting them back?
Yeah, I've seen that happen lots of times. You tend to, if you just email KDP support, quite often they'll come back, and sometimes they'll come back anyway. So, I mean, I will, when I have a launch, occasionally a couple, maybe 20 or 30 reviews will disappear, and then the next day they come back again. So it's not always the end of the road, but yeah, sometimes it is possible just to kind of drop them a line and say that, what's going on? Where these? I don't know these people. They've left reviews and now they've been taken off. Oh, I mean, another thing that happens is that if a reviewer is suspected of doing nefarious things, then all of their reviews can go, and it doesn't matter. You can be swept up in that. So if they've reviewed 100 different books by 100 different authors, and that reviewer is then comes under suspicion, all of the reviews can go. So it may have nothing to do with you, but is the reviewer.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I guess we're going to focus at the beginning on people who are just starting out. How do they get reviews, Mark Dawson?
Oh, James Blatch. The general rule, and this is the principle that runs for everything, and it is difficult, and I'm going to ask you what you think about this, is you should ask. So you mustn't be afraid to ask. Writers tend to be quite introverted people. And sometimes writers can be afraid of asking because they might feel it's an imposition, or they are fearful of someone saying no, or perhaps they're fearful of getting a bad review. But once we realize how important reviews are, we do need to step out of ourselves and realize that we have to ask. So, I mean, let's imagine in this kind of halcyon vision of
I know what you're going to say
2029 when the last flight is ready and on sale and you don't have any reviews yet. So how would you feel about asking people for reviews?
I think I would, for me, my strategy I think would be with my advanced reader team to ask them to email me their thoughts on the book, so that I had at least some picture in my mind that it's not absolutely awful and going to be terrible and I get a load of bad reviews, that at least the advanced reader team have said to me, who perhaps worked with me. So as soon as I realised that some people think it's a good book, that's enough for me, and I'm not bothered about risking.
Oh, now I have to pull you up immediately. So that is you being scared. So
yes, obviously I'm scared.
Who cares, right? So who cares if your advanced readers come back and say, James, this is terrible. What are you going to do? You're not going to sell it. What would you? You can't edit it forever. You've got to, at some point, you've got to go that you're wrong. I think this is a good book. I'm going to put it up there.
Okay.
So, by kind of seeking that validation from people on your team, unless it's something that they all pick out, that's really wrong.
Interesting, because we've had T.S. Paul on here before, and I was chatting to him in Florida last year, and his books do have mistakes in them. At least the versions I've read. They're very readable and I really enjoyed them, but I can imagine probably sending that book to 15 people and getting 14 bad reviews. Mm-hmm. And yet his books are adored by lots of people and fly off the shelf. So that's a pretty good example, actually, where you could get a lot of negative feedback straight away. It's meaningless compared to how it's going to do commercially.
So what you were doing there was asking for someone else's validation before you took the plunge to put the book out there. And you can't do that. You have to trust yourself. But if I was like that, well, I was like that, I suppose, when I started. But if I was like that now, I'd never publish anything. So,
okay.
So I don't think this is unusual. I think this is a fairly standard response from writers as they get ready to release their first books. But so you need to not be afraid to ask. And the other thing is, when you're asking, is explain to the people that you're asking why you're asking. So if you just say, I'd love a review, most people will go, yeah, I've got too many other things to do. But I'm fairly optimistic when it comes to other people. I think most people tend to be generally quite good and want to do nice things, especially when they understand why what they're being asked to do is helpful for someone. So if it were you, or if it were, I do this all the time, when I'm asking for a review, I will always explain why it is helpful. And I may be specific. So it could be, I want a BookBub deal on a new book. And although BookBub don't say you must have 50 reviews, I think it's fairly clear that the more reviews you have, the better. So what I would say in that situation would be, I would really, I'd be very, very grateful if you could find the time to leave me an honest review. And the reason I'm asking is because I want to book a promotion with BookBub, which will mean I am able to sell thousands of books and reach thousands of new readers. But to do that, I need your help. If you start to invest people with, involve them in the process like that and explain just how helpful it would be to your career, I find when I started doing that, the response I got back was starkly different to the response I had when I was kind of naively going, give us a review.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, because we probably get 4 emails a day from an organization saying, thanks for your phone call yesterday. It's going to really help us if you fill in this quick survey. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And, very annoying. Now, and the other thing, I just, because about, we're talking about asking here, I did a test last night. So I've just set up a new Facebook group. So it's not I've got a page. I'm also setting up a group, and I might perhaps do a podcast later on why I've done that. And it's all to do with Mark Zuckerberg's apocalyptic announcement a couple of weeks ago. But there's about 800 people in the group now who've migrated across from the page. And I just, I explained, I put a post up last night saying that we were doing this podcast, and I wanted to demonstrate, I wanted to show other writers that it's possible to get reviews by asking. So when I asked them for reviews on the first Milton book, and because I explained it that way, and I made it obvious that they would be helping me, and thereby I would be helping other writers by showing that what's possible. I had, when I sent it out, I had 916 reviews on the cleaner. This morning I had 934. And then in the UK, I had 482 and then up to 489. So I added probably 35 reviews there just by a 1 minute Facebook post into a group.
Wow.
Now, full disclosure, not everyone has a group of 800 readers who are by definition quite big fans. But it was just, I didn't give them anything, and they're not incentivized. I just asked them, and that was what happened. And that's another justification on having things like mailing lists and Facebook groups and pages and things like that.
Yes. So asking, number one on the list is you don't get if you don't ask.
Yeah, I mean, this is some general points now. I mean, the kind of the natural rate of reviews. So you sell a lot of books, you will get reviews because people will review them, and Amazon does occasionally. You'll have seen this when you finish a book. The first thing you see will probably be something from Amazon saying, what was your rating? Occasionally, you'll get an email from them. I bought something the other day, which wasn't a book. It was something technical, I think. And they sent me an email a week later saying, how did you find the widget you bought? And would you like to leave a review? And it had a link to take me straight back. So Amazon will encourage that occasionally. It doesn't happen all the time. But the kind of anecdotal rates or the ratios of reviews to sales and free downloads, in my experience, is around about 1 review every 100 sales.
Oh, really?
That used to be the case. I suspect there's actually a bit more, probably nearer 1,000 now. So it might be, it's between, in that kind of between 1,000 and 100. So you're probably looking at about 1 or 2 every time you hit that number. Free is going to be much bigger because not everyone who downloads a free book is going to read it. So you're probably looking at 1 review every 5 to 10,000 free downloads, something like that. I may be being a little bit on the pessimistic side there, but it's in that kind of ballpark. So those organic reviews should accrue just over the course of you running your business.
Okay, just on that point, I noticed that I bought a widget as well recently, and the people who sold it to me via Amazon have emailed me twice asking for a review. So I think it might be the same as eBay, where you don't always see the email address of the buyer, but you can contact them through eBay. I don't know whether they can automate that, whether these people have got something in place that 5 days after delivery, they ping a formatted email out saying, I hope you enjoy it. Can we help you? And by the way, we'd love it if you reviewed it.
Well, number one, we can't do that because we don't have the email addresses. Number two, I suspect that's probably illegal because they didn't sign up. They didn't give Amazon their email address so that you could then correspond with them. That is probably against data protection laws. Certainly would be once the new laws come in March. So fortunately, we can't do that because I think the temptation is there, and I would probably be tempted to do it too for writers to go, right, okay, now I'm going to email the 10 people who bought my book yesterday. Not a good idea. Anyway, so the methods that I would say are better ideas, and these are all valid, they're all tested, and they will work. So kind of focusing back on that asking, when you build up your mailing list, it is legitimate to ask them for reviews, as long as you make it clear it's not incentivized. You want them to be honest. So encourage good and bad reviews. There's nothing wrong with bad reviews. They'll even out the good ones, make it look like a realistic page rather than a page with 10,000 5-star reviews. So just ask them. You can send out a post to your, it could be your mailing list, it could be your Facebook group or your page, and explain, as I said, why you're asking. You'll probably find that you get a good response there. Another really good way to do this is to set up an automation sequence. So as people join your mailing list, and I still do this, one of the first emails they get back, this is all automated, so you write it, you set it up, maybe it takes an hour, and then it will continue to do that day after day after day after day after day. So it scales amazingly well. Is just to send out that email saying, again, if perhaps you gave them a free book to join, well, why not ask them if they enjoyed it? And if they did, or even if they didn't, then why don't you leave a review? And you give them a link to the Amazon page or the Apple page or the Kobo page, and you encourage them to go over there and leave a review. And that will lead to a steady trickle of reviews over time that you don't need to do anything. You're not lifting a finger. They're just happening automatically. And then on that, rather than just having a link to the product page, I would suggest linking directly to the leave a review page. It is possible if you go to leave a review yourself. So go to My Book, The Cleaner, and then go down to the halfway point where it says, would you like to leave a review? If you click that, you'll go to a new page that this where you'd enter, has the text box and the stars for entering your review. So you'll find some people will go, I can't find how to leave a review. So make it easy for them. Take them directly to that link that will take them to that text box. And then a lot of my readers are slightly older, and I'm not going to generalize, but occasionally I'll get emails from people saying, I'm not good with tech. Actually, that is generalizing. It could be from anybody. It doesn't have to be old people. And could you help me work out how to do the review? So there's a couple of things you could do. You could have pictures. You could have like go to this page with an arrow pointed to it, do this, and just make it a step by step. Or if you're good with video, upload something to YouTube, and then go through the process of leaving a review step by step so they can see that, and then include a link to that YouTube video in your mail out. Just make it as easy as you can.
Yeah, lower those resistance points.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about the quite low review rates naturally occurring. In terms of your list, how responsive is your list? I mean, you gave us an example of the group responding very well.
I don't track that in terms of how many reviews I'm getting off the list, because there's only, unfortunately, 24 hours in the day, and I can't spend that much time on it. But I could look at it as quite easy to put out the open rates and the click rate. It will give you a rough idea. Not everyone who clicks will leave the review, but sure. Reviews will. I find reviews come in. I get reviews on the books every day, and some of them will be coming from that particular source. Others coming from other places too.
Okay.
But if you have 20 sources and you get one a day, that's 20 reviews a day on all your books, that's pretty healthy.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so another kind of automated way of doing it, and this has been done for ages, but it still works really well, is to put the first thing they see. You've got to think about what you need, what you want most of all. When someone finishes the book that they've bought, at that point they've finished it, right? So unless they're one of those readers who are like, I'm gonna finish this book, it's rubbish, but I don't leave books unfinished. Not many people are like that, but you get to the end of a book, you're probably in the mood you may feel favorable towards the writer because you've been entertained for 8 hours or so. So there's two things you can do. If you want to build your mailing list, then you should put your mailing list call to action immediately there. Or if you want reviews more, then we'll just swap it around. So the first thing they see is an ask for a review. And a really good tactic is rather than having a page break and going to the next page, just put it directly underneath. You type the end. The next thing you put in there is whatever you want them to do. So it could be just a couple of sentences explaining how you love a review, why it's useful, and how to do it. This is the link. Go and do it. And that, combined with Amazon's automated emails that we've mentioned previously, that should, again, lead to another fairly fruitful source of ongoing reviews for you.
Yeah. I mean, that back matter, is that what you call it?
Yep.
In the trade. You don't want to overcrowd that, though, do you? Because it's also a very important place to get people onto your list.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would say list is more important because you can obviously get them. You can ask them for a review once they're on the list. If they leave a review but they don't join the list, then you can't reach them again. So personally speaking, I would have the first thing would be join the list. Second thing would be leave a review, and then you can ask them for a review again with an automation email that they might get a week later. Yeah. So that would be my order. But it depends if people really desperately want reviews, then you could switch it around.
Yeah. Okay. Good. What else we got?
Okay, so we mentioned, or you mentioned ARC teams, so Advanced Reader Copy teams, I mean that's is a subject for. We've mentioned this tons of times before. They're incredibly useful for loads of different things. So, kind of a subset of your mailing list, the super fans who have identified themselves as willing to leave reviews in exchange for early copies of the book. So. This is kind of specifically for the new releases. You can, of course, reach out to them for reviews on backlist as well if you want to. But the only thing I would say on that, and I mentioned this earlier, is some people are they will even use services, and we've mentioned these before, that will monitor whether someone has left a review or not. And if they haven't left a review, they'll be taken off the team. So I've never done that because again. It's time intensive. I also don't want to feel like I'm the police. And I'm kind of like, how many reviews have you left, James? For me, if you haven't left a review for the last book, then you're out of here. I don't want to do that because that feels like being a bit of a, So I don't do that. But that's just a choice. But it may well be that was a fortunate choice because I do feel now that may be in breach of the terms of service. And I didn't realize this, but just to read that again, you may provide free or discounted copies of your books to readers for reviews. However, you may not demand a review in exchange or attempt to influence the review. So I think if you're saying, look, you can have a book, but you must leave me a review or you're off the team, that to me is fairly clearly a demand for a review.
But even if you don't say it, if you don't spell it out, it's still a de facto incentivization. You're off the team. People end up realizing that they're off the team if they don't leave a review. Yeah, so I think most lawyers would say that is an incentive.
So I wouldn't recommend that. But ARC teams are fantastic. They are the best source of early reviews that I've ever come across. So I definitely recommend looking into that. Now, the next thing, social posting. So these can be automated again. So you've got your social channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're big. One thing that I do every Wednesday, and this is all automated through the buffering software that I use to run these, I get a call goes out for reviews on Facebook and Twitter. And this is what it says. If you have 5 minutes and you've read a Milton or Rose book, you'd make this writer very happy if you could write a short Amazon review. And that doesn't have a link to any particular book. I kind of leave that up to readers to go wherever they want to go. And the last one that went out the Wednesday before we were recording this, not boosted, but it went, the reach was 2,552 people, and it got 3 reviews. Completely on autopilot. I did nothing on that apart from, and we'll get onto this in a minute, when people left a comment to say that they've done that, I always thank them. It's crucial. You've got to, they've spent time doing something to help you. The very least that you can do is to thank them for doing that. So, and also other people see that.
Yes.
So other people see that comment and that you're thankful. So maybe the next time you ask, they're like, well, I'd like him to thank me too. I'll go and leave a review. So it's all virtuous.
And how do you know they've left a review? Because they post back into the comments saying that they've left a review.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then you, if you want to check, I mean, not that I would, but you can just go and have a look.
Yes.
Perhaps they've left a link, or you can, if they've said, I left a review on Saint Death, I loved it, you go and see, and then there'll be one, oh yeah, okay, they did. So, and then just, even if you can't find it or you can't be bothered to look, just thank them.
Just assume they have, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, that's all automatic. Now, Goodreads. We mentioned Goodreads earlier. This is a decent place to find people who are interested in reviewing. There are groups on Goodreads that are dedicated to almost every niche you can imagine. There's probably a dinosaur porn Goodreads group, I should imagine. Not that I've checked that out. Maybe I'll have a look later. But you can ask them. You can go in and post and ask their reviews. The only thing I'd say to that is that don't spam and see what the group's rules are. If they say they don't welcome writers, then I would certainly not recommend doing that, because Goodreads users can be a little ferocious sometimes. But if it's a group that actually invites writers to ask for reviews in exchange for free copies, go for it. It's a good way to get an early start. Okay, next one, bloggers. So when I started doing this, one of the things I did, and this was bigger in those days, was to look at book bloggers, find out people who liked thrillers and were reviewing thrillers, and then offer them a free book. Now, that did work. I got some pretty good reviews, actually, in the early days for the first book I posted. It is massively time intensive, so you've got to find them. I would certainly recommend writing individual emails rather than bulk posting, because people can smell a bulk email from a mile away. So you need to, at least indicate to them that you have read their page, you acknowledge their requirements, maybe mention that you'd like to review that they wrote for another book that's like yours, and you think that they'll like your book, and then send that out. So it can work, but it is a time intensive part of the process. If you're early in your career, then and maybe you're not quite as busy with marketing as you will be when you've got 20 books, that might be something that you could consider doing, because you've got to get the ball started, start rolling and build the momentum up. So maybe something that you want to think about.
Okay.
And then connected to that, a couple more. You can email reviewers. So if you look on the reviews for anyone on Amazon, you'll find sometimes if you go to the reviewer, click on them and then look at their details, sometimes they would have left their email. Now, I don't know why someone would do that. I certainly wouldn't. But maybe they've made a mistake. That's possible. But other times I think people do that because they're inviting people to contact them. So one thing you can do is maybe look on the pages of authors similar to you, find a list of readers who've left reviews and then have left their email address, and then just drop them a line and say, look, I read your review of James Patterson's new book. Would you like to read this new book, which is quite similar? And I think you might like it. I'd love to give you a free copy. And then if you like it, or if you don't like it, it would be great if you could leave a review. You can do that. Now, again, that is time intensive. Fortunately, there are a couple of tools that make that a little quicker, and these are paid tools. Also, I haven't used them before, but I've had a quick look around, and they generally get quite good reviews. But there's a site called BookRaiser. So BookRaiser, I think all one word, as is de rigueur these days. And then there's one with Jim Kukral from the Sell More Book Show, has Author Marketing Club, and he has something called the Reviewer Grabber. And I think what they do, and again, I haven't used them before, but my understanding is that they will trawl those pages and will pull the email addresses out, give you the email addresses, so save you the research process, and then enable you just to send the emails and get those out there that way. Okay,
that's interesting, isn't it? And as you say, would be labour intensive to go through and do that individually and looking for similar genre writers. I wonder if people are doing that deliberately to get free books. If they work out this is what's happening. But
maybe, but I'm pretty relaxed now. I give away hundreds of thousands of free books.
Yeah,
and thankfully I sell hundreds of thousands as well. So it's and I think those are connected, and reviews are important.
I'll just reinforce that point. Unfortunately, I haven't got it on, but I've got an Apple Watch. If you're watching on YouTube, showing off my Apple Watch, you've got one as well. And I bought if you buy the Apple leather strap, it's going to cost you 140 quid, but on Amazon you can get one for $8.99, and a nice little leather strap for it. And there you go, another cough. I thought it looked nice, so I took a picture of it, and the picture actually came out really well, and I wrote a little review. Well, lo and behold, about 3 months later, I got an email from them saying, we loved your review of our product. We've got a brand new leather strap, a luxury version. It's $19.99. Can we send it to you? And if you'd like to leave a review, that would be great. So they sent me this very soft leather, high end for them, $20 strap. And of course, I felt pleased and enamored, and I took another picture and I did another review for them. So yeah, that worked for them and worked for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all good, isn't it? Okay, so the couple more, and then we'll kind of circle back and look at thinking philosophically why we need reviews.
Yeah.
So if you start running ads on social media, so Facebook obviously being the obvious one, you will get comments. Now, this is obviously the more comments you get depends on how many times you serve the ad. So, I mean, if you're serving it a lot, as I am at the moment, you get quite a lot of comments. But even if you're not serving it a lot and you start to get maybe a comment every couple of days, a really good idea, especially if it's positive, is to thank them for the positive comment. You should always do that anyway. I always try as much as I can to respond to positive comments. But one thing you could do is just say, that's really kind of you. I'm so pleased you liked the book. It would be immensely helpful to me if you felt able to leave a review, or just, spread the word and help introduce my books to other readers like you who might like it just as much. And, you will find, again, people will do that, especially if you make it easy for them. People will, if you ask them and you explain why it's helpful and how they can make a positive impact on your career, your life, people will sometimes do that, just as happened with you.
Is there any way of harvesting those comments and putting them onto your description on Amazon and the bit that you write? You could sort of quote people.
You could put them in the editorial review section, which, you can't automate that. You've got to do it manually. I'm not sure unless you're desperate, you haven't got any other reviews, I'd do that. But yeah. And then finally, the other one I'd say is worth looking at is there are some services that will hook you up with reviewers. So they're kind of effectively like, I suppose, a concierge. So, you want reviews, or like a matchmaker. That's a better analogy. So they'll hook you up with reviewers and you pay them a fee in exchange for them putting your book out to a list of readers in your genre, for example. So, this is completely fine. It would be wrong if it would be against terms and conditions if you paid the reviewer, but it's okay to pay someone to arrange that your book goes out for reviews, provided everything else is in line. And the services I'm going to recommend are in line as far as I know. So I'll kind of caveat that a bit, and I haven't used either of them. And the reason being is I don't really need to these days. And the other one is that the first one, Hidden Gems, is used to major on romance, and obviously I don't write romance books, but they have recently branched out into other genres as well. So we actually got a recommendation for these guys, Hidden Gems, from Steve Turnbull in the SPF community, who's used them before. And as Steve says, they're not verified purchases because the reviewers don't buy the books; they're given them in order to review them. But he says that the kind of response rate is very high because these people know that they are there in order to review the books. And also, I think he says you've got to be clear about the genre and also expect these reviews to be honest, which is of course what you want. So you're not going to get hundreds of 5-star gushing reviews. You're going to get a few 2s and 3s in there as well, probably, which is fine. It's exactly what you want. So Hidden Gems is one, and as I mentioned previously, the other one is Bookraiser, who will slightly different. They'll kind of put you in touch with people whose email addresses that they've culled from those Amazon pages. But yeah, Hidden Gems is the one that we look at most of in terms of recommendations from people in the community.
And how much are these services?
I think they, this is from memory, I think for them it's like you put $20 down and then I think it's kind of structured dependent on the response that you get, something like that. So it's not cheap, but on the other hand, it's not extortionate, and reviews are worth having. And I remember when I got started, I would have very happily paid £20 to get, well, more than that, to get a few reviews.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, let's move on to that. We'll sort of conclude this with answering the fairly fundamental questions of why are reviews important?
Well, I mean, if you think about how you react on Amazon when you're buying something, not necessarily a book, I mean, one of the first things you'll look at is reviews. I mean, I will always look at the negative reviews first because I think they tend to be the most interesting, and then I'll look at the other ones too. But weighted reviews is important, I think, even in a kind of a subconscious level when you're buying something. If you see something, I know this is certainly true for my buying behavior. If you're buying bottle of water on Amazon, so bad example, but if you're buying a bottle of water on Amazon and you see one bottle of water that has 5 reviews and the other one that has 505 reviews, I think you are subliminally going to move towards that, the one with the slightly heavier review weighting. So there's that. It's positive reinforcement as well. So if you, I suppose that's connected. If you you could put your blurb in there, you could have some pull quotes and all that kind of stuff. But then if you have lots and lots of other reviews there, 4s and 5s, it's going to build a picture, make your sales page convert at a higher rate. Just persuades potential wavering readers that this is a book that obviously lots of other people have enjoyed. So why wouldn't they enjoy it too? And then the other, kind of the third and final reason is they are required sometimes by some of the bigger promotional sites. So BookBub don't have a kind of a stipulated, you must have X reviews, but in my experience, you'll stand a better chance of getting a BookBub feature deal if you've got more reviews. I think that stands to reason. And there are some of the sites, Fussy Librarian, I think, comes to mind. Some of them will have, you must have 10 reviews, or you must have 20 reviews. So in order to run the best promotions, the ones that have an effect that we know from plenty of experience is reliable, you will sometimes need reviews. So that everyone you get is getting you closer to be able to pull the trigger on something that might then mean you can send out one of those big email blasts, get more sales, and then start to get more reviews. So it's just kind of, once you get a certain momentum going, they kind of come in naturally, but you've got to get the early ones in order to start pulling those triggers.
Okay. So one of the dangers of this is the dreaded 1-star review, which not even you are completely immune from.
No, God, no, not at all. No, I get them all the time. I'm fine with it now. As I've mentioned, I think when we were talking about imposter syndrome a while ago, and it's one of the things you have to get used to. What did I get one the other day? In fact, I get quite a lot, and it's fine. It makes it look more realistic to have a spread of reviews, provided, of course, you've got more good ones than bad ones. It makes it more realistic to have a good spread, and you can learn stuff from reviews as well. I mean, it can help you with your advertising. So if someone says, "I saw this book compared to book X," maybe that is a reminder that you're pushing the book into the wrong audience.
Yeah.
It's the wrong genre. Or you can sometimes get tips on craft. I mean, this book, I didn't like the way it jumped around lots of different points of view. Or maybe if you hear that more than once, then maybe you should think about restricting your points of view a bit. Or the book, there are typos on, lots and lots of typos. Well, that is that's a red flag. You need to go back and get that book edited to make sure that those typos go away. So you can learn lots. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, certainly. I noticed we used to both work in the film industry, and expectation was a very important thing. So the films that got poorer reviews, a lot of poor reviews, often were simply people having their expectations confounded because it looked like a rom-com, and they went in there and saw it, and it was full of strong sexual references and Closer. Closer is a very good example of that, but there's lots of others actually, films that slightly missold them because it was a better sell on the side of a bus, and the film didn't quite live up to that. You can pick up bad reviews. So just make sure you're being relevant as much as possible, which you should be anyway, to get your percentages up. Yeah,
Star Wars.
That's not, although people did enjoy our discussion of Star Wars. Let's not go there now. Good. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it. It's been a long interview. This has taken 3 days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'll go and wash my clothes now.
He did promise me he'd washed his clothes. And you've had an extraordinary weekend, so you're feeling a little bit spaced out now, I think.
Oh, God. Yeah, I posted that on my Facebook profile, actually. But no, we had lots of things, including deceased animals. It's been a long one. I had an X-ray on Friday for my chest complaint.
It's
I haven't coughed any more blood up, which is always good to hear.
Nice. Yeah, we don't do that on the video version. It was almost a Faulty Towers moment, isn't it? You can walk in, all the chaos going on. You look down. There's a dead cat in the utility room, but
it was a very, very weird moment. Yeah, but I managed to. I don't think the buyers of my house listen to this podcast, but they don't know how close they were to walking into a room in my house with a poor deceased cat on the floor.
Well, rest in peace. What was the cat's name?
Mabel.
Rest in peace, Mabel. I know she'd been with you a long time.
18 years. Yeah. She was a good cat.
Yeah, good. Okay. Good. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. There is a PDF download to go with this episode, and that's going to be found at selfpublishingformula.com/reviews. So that PDF will have a summary of the main points that Mark's talked about in this, and something for you to follow, and we'll keep it updated from time to time. There'll also be those links in there, and you can go and have a look at the prices yourselves. Good. Okay. Well done, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for that masterclass. They always go down well, these episodes. They always a little spike on the downloads, the masterclass episodes. People have a thirst for knowledge.
They do. No, happy to do it. It's always a fun one to do.
Excellent. Anything else to say? You look like you were going to say something.
No, that's it. I'm done.
You're done. Stick a fork in him. He's done. Thank you very much indeed for listening. We'll speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingformula.com for more information, show notes, and links on today's topics. You can also sign up for our free video series on using Facebook ads to grow your mailing list. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.